Any reflections on what Alexey has said that you would like to impart to the group, having seen all this, in terms of what you think of it, what you make of it, the time frame, this sort of stuff, just your own, experience on the ground?
I of course already shared partly my experience, but only in terms of the collection mainly. But yes, this part which is about presenting in the first mission is a really difficult one. When you have to, in several days, to meet the people, to understand that data is correct, to walk, to play with them, and to come up with some results, and last night to create some presentation. But it's possible in the two cases. We managed to do it. But it's really important that the team with which you visit countries really good and support each other, and that you are creative and ready to work a lot during the mission, really, day and nights. This in Kyrgyzstan case we were able to produce some infographic also, yes, in the last days, if I remember. It was a presentation and an infographic which Alexey created, and it was presented, and it was really well accepted that the effective team of WHO come and did something in 7 days. But of course, this beautiful report, it needs much more time and efforts, and to be sure that all what is inside is really double checked several times, and all numbers are really the last one and can be explained and reviewed.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. James, you've been involved. Yes, question.
Which countries are you expect to take a part in this program in future?
Okay, let's just put that on hold, and we'll have and maybe Alexey, you can see whether you've got a slide on that, or you can put a slide up on that, and we'll come to that because that's a very good point. And I thought we'd cover that at the beginning, but I don't think we have clearly enough. So we'll give Alexey a bit of time to put something together while we just continue this discussion. Yes.
Just we want to add the only one thing what presented by Alex is a very nice and structured plan for a mission. But we have to, all the structure of the visit and what we will do, we should not forget our objective. The mission objective is to collect data. So sometimes we lost time in some long meeting with some department, and we know they don't have data. So we have to relate all what we say and restrict this to the data and what is the kind of data that we need.
Okay, thank you. James, you've been involved in the Vietnam one. Could you just outline which products you've been involved in developing, either in Vietnam or elsewhere, and what your experience is, please?
Yeah, in Vietnam, I developed the country report, the Excel models, the PowerPoint presentation, and the infograph. Basically what Alexey specified, the Economists will be in charge of doing. I can speak from experience of doing a PowerPoint, which I did over, possibly Skype to several members of the Ministry of Health in Vietnam. And what I realized, the outcome of this presentation was that it seemed like the first step to them, even though I'd finished the report and it looked like the end product. This was actually when it really raised their interest. Most of their responses were like, yeah, this is amazing, but we want to do several changes to it. So I think this highlights the importance of getting the involvement of them so they have some sort of ownership over it from the first step, because most of the analysis I was doing, and if I had their involvement earlier on, then we would, by the end of that PowerPoint, it would have been presumably the end of it, basically, and it would be finalising things. But instead, there are several changes that I wanted to make. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. Jill, just so that you are aware, I don't know if you saw these slides up here. Very quickly.
I was eating,
So you saw them.
but watching.
Okay, so you,
from behind
so
them,
you saw these various slides.
Yeah.
So in which case, having just come back from Kyrgyzstan,
Yeah.
all the work you've done in Kyrgyzstan, the work that you've been also doing in Belarus, thinking ahead to Uzbekistan and so on and so forth, any comments that you'd like to highlight?
I thought the presentation covered many things very well. I think it's the importance about having a team leader and the quality control and pulling things together. So thinking, I lead the team from the WHO point of view. If it's a European country that's involved, other regions may do it differently. But I acted as the glue on a few things for the report. So, and I think generally we would not send a consultant alone into a country, just a health economist who's never done it before, into a country alone and be handling media and so on. I think the example, in the end, yes, Anna did a radio interview at the end of the presentation, but she was with Alexey, and we spoke with her before she went in, and we had confidence that after all this time she really knew what she was doing, and she'd worked closely with WHO for over a year in multiple countries. So I think it can sound a little bit scary, and in Europe we wouldn't send a health economist alone. We would always make sure. And I think with, particularly as we did the final session in Kyrgyzstan, everyone was playing their part very well, so it was very much a team. And we were clear that we were doing the report and some technical checks on the presentation, and Alexey and team were doing another bit, and they were handling getting the people there. So it's a team effort, I think, but someone's got to be clear on that. It's not the health economist who's doing it by themselves, or I don't think it should be the health economist.
I think those points are really important, and I think that will be the same in all regions. The importance of being one member, but a very important member in a team, and not feeling that you're going to be responsible. The mission that I did go on in Mongolia, we had a health economist, a young health economist who was a PhD student, and we had a epidemiologist from WHO in headquarters, and they'd been working together very closely for the 2 days, and he had quite a wicked sense of humour. And we were due to be meeting the minister for a wrap-up on day whatever it was, the end of the mission. And I was just out of the room at the time, and it was just him, this statistician, and the epidemiologist, and the economist. And he said to her, I don't know if I told you yet, but no one else is going to be able to go to the Minister of Health. It's going to be you. You're going to have to do the whole thing. She said, I can't possibly. And he carried this on for quite a while until I walked in. She said, what's all this? What's all this? And I said, what do you mean? He said, I hear that no one is going to the briefing. I said, no. So she was a bit upset by that. So that was a bit of a wicked sense of humour.
But scary.
But scary. But that we won't get you in that position. Alexey, are you standing up there because you've got more to say? You're going to do the countries.
Put this
Yeah, perfect.
slides,
Well, I don't have particular slides for the purely investment cases, but majority of these countries are overlap and already got the support in developing an investment case or or have requested that. So These are the countries that the UN Interagency Task Force conducted on missions to over the last 3 years. It's a joint program in missions. It's not particularly to do the economic analysis, but this is to do the multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder analysis, to provide governments with support with recommendations on how better to shape national and CD response, mechanisms to establish how to involve other sectors, how to establish coordination mechanisms within the UN country teams, bringing all other UN agencies to work on. But I have to say that in 95%, one of the top 3 recommendations is to develop the investment case. The majority of these countries has requested the development of an investment case. And in Africa, it's in African region, it's Democratic Republic of Congo, it's Kenya, and it's Zambia. And Zambia is on our radar, and Kenya is already developing an investment case by WHO, UNDP, and World Bank. In the region of Americas, Barbados, we already developed the investment case for them. It was presented in 2015. Jamaica, it's currently under development and will be presented in the end of October. Paraguay is not involved in that. In Eastern Mediterranean region, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Chokri is the leading economist, and it's currently almost, I think, done. Yeah, it will be presented quite shortly. In the European region, it's Belarus and Kyrgyzstan and Turkey. All these 3 countries have already got support in the development of investment case. In Southeast Asia region, it's only Bhutan who wants that, and probably it will be done next year. And in Western Pacific region, these are Cambodia, who is on the list, Fiji, already developed investment case, Mongolia development case developed, Tonga is on the radar, and Vietnam, James already shared his experience with doing the investment case for Vietnam. And these are countries not on the list for the task force, not only for investment cases, but majority of them are overlap with the demand for investment case. And this is Ethiopia, Nicaragua, Peru, Iran, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Indonesia, Philippines, and Nepal. All these countries requested support with development of investment case, and I hope that, including with your support, we will be able to satisfy this demand in the coming, 12, 24 months.
Any questions or comments? Okay, so the one session that we have not conducted formally, but I think we've gone through it, and that's practical issues that arise when working in country. And I think we have managed to touch on that quite a bit. So I don't propose to take more time than is necessary, but I would just go around and ask, first of all, those people that have been involved in these joint missions, whether or not they've got anything further to say to what they have already, and then we'll ask people whether they've got any final concluding questions or remarks. So first of all, those that have been involved, if we just go around, Jill, do you think there's anything further that you wish that you had said but haven't said so far?
I don't. Oh, sorry. I don't think so. I made a little list before I came, and if I look at the list, I think we've covered all the practical points that I thought had come up.
Okay. Anna.
Well, only one additional practical point from you. So this job needs time, and it needs to, your main employer needs to give you this time to do these things, and in some cases it can be your own vacation, because it's a week and then we just to think about it.
That could be one of the most critical points that's been made for the last 2 days. Yeah. Because once this takes you in, it sucks you in a bit, doesn't it, Anna? The rewards are great, but it takes you, does suck you in a bit.
It sucks you in, and you get lots of unreasonable deadlines from me, don't you? Where I'm saying, okay, it's we think there's a possibility we could do feedback in September in Kyrgyzstan. Can you do it? These dates suit everybody else. Can you drop everything and come? And we've just been in the back room. We've been discussing all the future missions. And we've been going, okay, Anna, if you travel through the night, can you get there in time to then? And then you travel back to your workplace. So it's taken a lot of flexibility.
Yes.
And I think at one stage I worked as a WHO consultant, and with my employer, we did two different ways of doing it. One is that the contract for my time went to my institution, and I was then allowed to do it within my own working day, because it was agreed that 10 days of my time was being paid for by WHO. And another time the contract went to me, but then I did it all in weekends and holidays and evenings. So you need to think with your own employer what your arrangement will be if you have an employer.
Of course. And nights become shorter, the weekends also.
Okay, fine. James, anything you'd like to say?
I guess I can just reiterate that it's certainly a learning process the first time, but hopefully for you guys it will be a lot easier, seeing as we have a much better idea of how to do it now than we did before. We have the different models that we know that we're going to use, and yeah, good luck.
Okay, thanks very much, James. Alexey, anything that you've got to add? No. Okay, fine. So, in which case, let me just come over here. In which case, this concludes the program. But first of all, before I sort of sum up and try and articulate next steps, are there any questions that any of you have at this stage? Or maybe what I'll do is I will go through next steps, because then you may have questions related to what I'm saying or to other points. So, where are we now? The next steps is that we are starting to put together a timetable, as Alexey and Jill have articulated, for the next investment cases. And they will be done, as Alexey has said, this year and into the end of next year. It is not beyond the bounds of possibility that other countries will come up which we will find financing for. And we will then have to take stock of how we resource those, because these ones are the first and most important ones to deliver on. So clearly we are looking at some consultants to support this work. We're taking this in about 3 steps. The first step is that we have a briefing session like we've had for the last 2 days. We then need to identify exactly which people would be in a position to move forward on. That depends on a number of issues. It first and foremost depends on your interest in being involved in this. It also depends on your institution being willing to release you and support. It then also depends on us being in a position to make sure that you are suitable and are clear on what's required. And the process that we have done in the past is we've developed what we call rosters for these types of initiatives. And to get on a roster, it requires people to have attended events like this, maybe have gone out to the field with somebody else and learn from what's going on, but not leading on the process. And then usually sitting some sort of test, which sounds very scary, but it's not that scary, but some sort of test to make sure that we can then argue that you're in a good position to take this forward. So then once that's done, we will then agree in terms of reference and take that forward. So this is, if you like, the first of a number of steps. That doesn't mean it's going to take years and years to do it, but what we would start now looking at is when we could get a couple of people to go out to the country and join someone, when we could perhaps have a test to set this forward, then we would have people on the roster agree terms of reference for the work in general. So we are the first and the most important way forward in terms of having now had this this briefing session. So that's where we are. I suspect that we will probably run one other workshop like this in the next few months, probably in Geneva with one or two other people from other different regions who will need to participate as well. So then we'll have a good group of people to take this forward. Jill, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Okay. Any questions then from people in terms of anything that's been said? I think I'd also like to highlight the importance of this sort of network that will be built up. It's a very small network at the moment, but I think it will be an ever greater network over the coming weeks and months. Some of you will know of Melanie Bertram, who is unfortunately not able to be here. I think that the fact that we have had Jeremy and Odd who have been here immediately takes that network of people in headquarters broader. I mentioned the consultant that will be doing the quality assurance, and his name is Rory Watts, as I said, so that's another person. Then, of course, there's the people that are around here that have been involved in the investment cases so far. So we are gradually building up a network, and I hope that we will end up having a web page which is entirely dedicated to this stream of work, where we will put on the guidance that we're doing, the screenshots which James and Anna are going to be developing over the next period of time, the presentations that have been given today, the reports and products that have been produced that you've seen. So it's all in one place as a resource pack. And then I hope those individuals on the network that will be also up there with their contact details. And then finally, as we produce a roster, the names of the people who are on the roster. So that's kind of where I'd like to get us to.